Lesson 2 then, let's have a look at creating projects. And there's two ways to create projects. First is in Visual Studio Code, and the second is from the command line. If we look at Visual Studio Code, the simplest way to go about this is to create a new folder. So if you come into here and do open folder, find a location to create your Playwright projects, on my PW projects, and in here, a new folder in here for, say, project 2. And if we select that folder, then in Visual Studio Code, we've opened that folder and we can see that in Explorer, Project 2. So we can see that Project 2 folder in the Explorer view. And from here, to create a new Playwright project, we can do Control-Shift-P for the command palette, and we can just type install Playwright. And this will give us the option to select which browsers we want to work with. So Chromium, Firefox, and WebKit. Maybe I just select Chromium and Firefox. And then whether or not to use JavaScript or TypeScript. It defaults to TypeScript, Microsoft's JavaScript implementation. And then we can add a GitHub Actions workflow, which we'll add for now, and we'll talk about in a later lesson. Click on OK, and what you should see in the terminal is this command executed. So it's using the Node Package Manager, initializing the Playwright package, and these options, as we'll see in a minute, automatically selects yes for the install of the Playwright. Node modules, quiet, so no more prompting. That's the Chromium browser install, that's the Firefox install, and that's the GitHub Actions option. So we'll see that in action when we run this manually in a second. But once that's completed, we've got the GitHub folder, which is that the --gha parameter. We've got the Node modules that have had to be installed to support a Playwright project. We've got a couple of test folders. This is where our tests will be written and stored. These are some example tests. We've got .git ignore so that we don't commit files to our Git project later on. And we've got a couple of package files which define which Node packages have been installed. And then we've got the Playwright config file, which we'll talk about in a lot more detail in some of the future lessons. So that's the first approach with Visual Studio. If we swap over to a command prompt, what we'll see is that we can run exactly the same command we saw in Visual Studio. And if we put that command into our command prompt, we've got npm for the Node Package Manager, initialize the Playwright, Node packages, the latest versions. Yes, will prevent it prompting us to confirm the installation of those packages. Quiet means it will take all the default options, and then browser, Chromium, browser, Firefox, and the GitHub Actions file. So again, what we want to do before we actually run this is to create a directory to store this project. So if I mkdir project 3 and I change directory to project 3, so at the moment this project folder is empty, and when I run this command, the Node Package Manager will install all the commands. You can see that it's picking up all of the defaults, so it will go with TypeScript rather than JavaScript. And when it's completed, we see the little Playwright logo. And if we do a listing of that directory now, we've got the .github file, .github ignore, the Node modules directory, package file, Playwright config file, and the folders for our tests and some example tests. And that's it. Two simple ways to create your first Playwright projects. And in the next lessons, we'll look at how to write, record, and execute those tests we create in our Playwright projects.